Yes, my family moved up here to Elk River from Albert Lea, Minnesota in 1940. I was 13 years old then. And I was like most kids, I was really disappointed because I didn't want to leave my friends in school back in Albert Lea. But when I came here, I discovered that it didn't take long and this was the right place for me. It was kind of a Huckleberry Finn existence as far as my imagination went because of the rivers here. And I was talking to Tom Wilson recently, who was in school with me here, and he said, "You remember when we used to jump off the icebreaker in the Mississippi and swim across?" And I said, "Yeah, I sure do." And anyway, that's a more recent reminiscence. When we came here in 1940, the stadium stonework hadn't been completed, but they were working on it. And I believe it was under the National Youth Administration, which was a government program like the WPA that put younger people to work. And the site here had been donated by J.W. Clark, who was the superintendent prior to R.W. Handke, who was superintendent when I came here. And the Clark family, which included one son who was my best friend, James Harvey Clark, we called him Ticky. They lived in close proximity to this area. And after it was donated to the school district, then the work began on refurbishing it. I played my football here. And the first hockey that I played was unorganized hockey. And the thing that happened was that there were no boards here. It wasn't a high school sport at the time, it was just pickup hockey. And what we did was, in order to have shin guards, our mothers would take two pieces of cloth and sew slots in them so we could buy slats at the lumber yard and put them in there and wrap them around our shins. And at that time, all automobiles, tires had inner tubes. So we cut up inner tubes and made straps for them, and that's how we strapped them onto our shins. And we had a lot of fun. But it was only just part of the activities here. And Mr. Handke, he saw to that we had a large Victrola that stood just outside of the warming house down there, playing waltz music. And there didn't have the floodlights you have now, but we had a couple of lights. And when this music was being played, we'd waltz skating with the girls. That was all part of the activities that were going on here. And many of us spent our nights or evenings helping Mr. Handke flood this area. His being was really more of an institutional thing than it was just being a superintendent of schools. He saw too that all of us had things to do, and it was a rich period of time. It was all clean fun. And there were some older fellows that played some pickup hockey, but I'm not really clear in my mind about, I think they played teams from other towns, but it was just pickup. It wasn't organized. And I think the Jacobson boys, who some people probably remember, were part of that. Right where we're sitting was the center field of the baseball diamond. And only one person that I ever knew hit it out of this stadium. His name was George Meyer, one of the great all-time athletes here. He hit that ball, so it cleared these trees, and they found the ball down on that street there in the gutter. And that was a long poke, but he hit it with a homemade bat that had been used just for warm-up purposes. He was the only one that could swing it, and later on he became a professional baseball player, and he was killed in Battle of the Bulge, a paratrooper, and it was a very sad loss for our community at the time. I could go on about a lot of things, and especially about my family's involvement here, and the beginnings of the Youth Hockey Association as an organization. Our middle son, Steve, was a hockey enthusiast in the family, and one of them in the community, along with the Beckland boys, and I could name a number of them. But he actually brainwashed his younger son, Paul, who later played for the University of Minnesota, and he's now a agent for the National Hockey League. And Steve told him, "You don't want to be running around in underwear playing with a round ball, do you?" And everybody that knows Steve knows how he could be so descriptive about things. Paul's eldest brother, Tom, was the first basketball player to break 1,000 points here in Elk River. And so Steve was determined we weren't going to have another basketball player in the family. And by the way, over by that one large tree over there, some of Steve's ashes have been deposited in his memory. We lost him about 4 years ago. And Paul, I took his gear down here. I don't know how many nights, it would be 20 below zero, all of his goalie equipment. And he wanted to be an Olympian. Well, in 1983, he was picked for the U.S. national team, and which won the gold medal in the B pool, which qualified the U.S. for the 1984 Olympics. And he had been invited to the U.S. Olympic hockey camp out in Colorado. However, he continued to practice after he got back from the 1983 team, and at Augsburg College he tore the ligaments in his right ankle, so he couldn't go. And he told me one time, he said, when I was out here all by myself at night after I'd been practicing, I skated out to the middle of the arena here, or the stadium, and I stood there at attention waiting for my Olympic medal. And he was just maybe 9 or 10 years old at that time. And of course it was a big disappointment that he couldn't make the Olympic team for that reason. However, he did play a lot of hockey, and he was MVP at the University of Minnesota in 1983. 82, I believe, was his last year there that he played. But there's so many other people that I could mention here that played here, and in the hockey business got going primarily because there were football players that liked to play hockey, and we didn't have any real good skaters except for a few. And what they did, they started a team here, the high school did, and Schumacher, the coach here, a football coach, he was also the first hockey coach, and they wore football jerseys to play in, but there was nothing organized, and it had its beginnings here. And a fellow by the name of Danny Delgehausen, used to take the little kids in his Volkswagen and find pickup games around the area with organized hockey. And Paul was one of them that was on those teams. And it wasn't until about the time they became Bantams, where they started playing a tough schedule, an organized schedule, that I think we really broke through as a competitive hockey program. We have people who were very instrumental in organizing youth hockey, Dave Hallgren being one of them, one of the main ones, and there were Mrs. McGibbon, she was on the board, and there was Joel Otto's father, Bob Otto, and it took a lot of organizing, but a tremendous commitment. And by the way, Dave Hallgren is in the process of writing a history about Elk River youth hockey. I talked to him recently, and I don't know just how it's coming along, but he's still working on it, and he was a very committed guy. We, as a result here in Elk River, you probably know this, that besides the college players, we've produced 4 National Hockey League professionals. Joel Otto and Dan Heinold, Prosser, and Paul Martin. Yes, Paul Martin by all means. So that's a kind of a thumbnail of what's going on here. I could go on and on and on, but I think the fact that I had so much fun playing here, and then I played my football. In my era when I was a linebacker and fullback, we had to play both ways, and there was never any grass on that field. It was just sand. And on this particular end, where we had one set of goalposts, I went in for a touchdown in a game, and twisting and turning, I ended up in the end zone on my back with a pile of guys on me, and my jersey was just fastened to my back because of all the sandburrs I landed in. So I went over to see Coach Lanners and told him to pull this loose. I said, I can't stand it. And he started just easily pulling it loose, and I said, just pull it all at once so I got over it. That was one of the experiences I had here, and we had a lot of good times. We had some great football players, and but this was the sports area in those days for all the sports except, of course, for basketball. It was track, it was hockey, and football, and baseball. And our eldest son, Tom, who was a basketball player, also pitched here. The home plate was just about dead on from here over where the, well, you see where the warming house is. You go to the left there about 15 yards, and that's where home plate was, and the backstop. So I could reminisce about a lot of things. I don't think it'd probably be helpful because I'm trying not to ramble, and that's not easy for me. Yes, this area here actually was a small pond, if you will, not just a small one, but a rather large one, and it was deeded to the school by the J.W. Clark family. And I think they had a tough time with the drainage system because there wasn't any, and there was no lift station here to get the water out. So when it rained, it tended to collect. And I remember one game after I was out of school, they played Minnehaha Academy, and it was just like you couldn't even see the yard markers. It was just like a small lake. I think that part of it, I guess I could honestly say that now that I'm almost 85 years old, I've become a resource instead of something else. But there aren't too many people now that have outlived me here, and I cherished the years that I had here in Elk River. It was a blessing that we moved here.